Oh. 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 In our 100 Steps to Infinity course, last night, the discussion subject was for them to reflect upon designing their own course. What would be this course filled with? Who will teach it? What will they teach? How will they teach it? And many shared their reflections that we should have more discussion. We should study Vishnu Sahasranama and so on. When I shared my reflection, I acknowledged and appreciated everyone else's, but they all failed to acknowledge and appreciate the diversity of the students in the course. We have some with a long history of relating to oneness. Some are very new, they don't know certain words, which makes designing a course much more challenging to be inclusive of all. Looking around at all of you, this is even more difficult. There's even more diversity in Meaningful Mornings. We have many young seekers, younger than me. One is Sudarshan, who many of you see, he's here right now. I've known him since he was in middle school, then high school, now he's in college. And he asks a lot of questions. When I was with him live and now through Meaningful Mornings. He's joining us from college. It's 7:30 a.m. at, I think, the University of Virginia, I think. So yesterday, Sudarshan had asked, when I'm engaging in that which is more mundane, let's say folding one's clothes or walking and so on, what should I be doing to be contemplative? I had answered this question in the 100 Steps to Infinity course in terms of mauna. When your mouth is closed, what should your mind be doing? So I'm sharing this with all of you in a systematic way. If you want to train yourself to be contemplative, start by perceive. Whatever you're doing, perceive that. The warmth of the water, your footsteps on the ground, and so on. More contemplative than that is to chant. You're going from the body to the mind. Chant, Om Ramaya Namaha. Chant, I am joy. More contemplative than that is inquire into the fundamentals. That way you're better at the function. Perceive, chant, inquire. More contemplative than that is observe. You're observing, not at a perception level, but you're observing how is perception even possible? How does the mind work? That there must be that which is illuminating the intellect. And the highest is to be. Even though verbs are occurring, like walking and washing and so on, what are you doing? being. As we shift from perceive to be, there are less thoughts. Your thoughts are becoming lower in quantity, lower in quantity, and are being redirected to the only subject that is worthwhile: infinity, joy. Many of us have experienced Vedanta and Ramayana together. One of the difficult to interpret facets of the Ramayana is when Bhagavati Sita has to engage in the Agni Pariksha, to be tested by fire. The Vedanta of this, Bhagavati Sita is an icon of Bhakti, devotion. And Sri Rama is an icon of Jnana, or knowledge. She was completely devoted to knowledge, which is why, for us, the ego will get burned in contemplation, but not the spirit. So contemplation is a form of Agni Pariksha, for me to burn away the ego, but that's only possible if I'm devoted to knowledge. That's why I shared less and less and less thoughts until there's a singular thought, Aham Brahmasmi, I am infinite. And when that thought is realized, you don't think I am infinite. You know you are infinite. Our history, our prayers have much significance to them if we reflect. Next week, Chinmay Mission Calgary has asked me to speak on the power of prayer. For 4 evenings, I'll be facilitating a workshop on sharing our prayers, but how this can be personalized. What is the Vedanta of such prarthana? Any questions? You can share these in the chat. 1.5 mornings left until you get a certificate that says you are a dhyana yogi. And then we continue on to chapter 7. Any questions on practicing contemplation? Okay, see, I told you Sudarshan has a lot of questions. Hari Om. I always thought that because the intellect was compared to Sri Krishna, it was perfectly in one's control in mastering the mind. What does it mean that desires are in the intellect, especially if desire thoughts are in the mind? And when observing during contemplation, what is there to observe about the intellect if there aren't desires at the moment? Whenever comparisons are made, please understand that they're just comparisons. These comparisons are built in a finite construct with space, time, and matter, so they cannot directly relate to the infinite. It's impossible. The infinite is incomparable. How can you use a comparison? But we use comparisons to hold on to, but we have to let those comparisons go too. We have to hold on to guided contemplation, but then you have to let go of the guidance, yes? When we contemplate, I don't depend on your guidance. I'm guiding myself. In the poetry of Bhagavad Gita, Prince Arjuna is the mind and Shri Krishna is the intellect. In the more technical sense, the ego is an icon of incompleteness. The more egotistical you are, the more sad you are. Think of a bully. A bully is one who's so insecure within that they try to make others more insecure than them so that they feel some sense of security. A bully is highly egotistical. Comparatively, those who are inclusive are highly humble. They have inner security. They are including others. That incompleteness in the ego expresses as desires in the intellect. The first equipment, let's plan to become complete. Then the intellect passes that to the mind. Let's start thinking about what we can do. We should go there, we should earn this, we should compare this person. When one is observing, you're observing how nonsensical this is. You can't create joy. So the mind becomes quieter, the intellect becomes more still, and specifically, one comes to understand and appreciate that the ego is a phantom. It has no function. It doesn't do anything for us. It only identifies with these equipments that go on to harm us. So the more carefully you observe this, the more confidently you share, this is not me. This doesn't make any sense. It's irrational. It's illogical. Next, from Atlanta. While contemplating, the mind either goes towards distraction or one gets drowsy. Of course, chanting does help, but I find that my mind still gets distracted. And if I force my mind, it seems like I have lost my focus. Any strategies? Proactively, nishchaya and anirvinna chetasa. Be determined, be inspired. Nothing should stop you. Lots can slow you down, but nothing should stop you. Reactively, abhyasa vairagya. Reflect more, not just with me. Reflect all day. And vairagya, then relieve yourself of that which is harming you. Negative company, too much social media, sleeping late, etc. Zooming into your challenges specifically, starting with drowsiness or laya. Anyone who is new to contemplation, and you should just assume you are new. Sleep more. Go to sleep earlier. Wake up at the same time, but now you've slept more, so that when you engage in this highly demanding practice, you have enough physical and mental energy. How many of you have been in a serious car accident before? By show of hands. I think a lot of us have. The day after your accident, if you didn't get injured, what did you do most of the day? Sleep, correct? I remember sleeping 18 hours after my accident. Why? Because it's so demanding to think that you could have just died. Just imagine the demand on the mind. Contemplation is a form of that, isn't it? That I'm essentially killing my relationship between me and the mind, me and the intellect, me and the ego. So you need that energy. In terms of the distraction, everyone, please give up multitasking. I will tell you in a most direct way because others may not. If you multitask, you will not contemplate. You have to make a choice now. If you want to be successful in the world where everyone knows you to be a multitasker, or you want to be successful in life, where you are content, where you can actually help others, in which case your lifestyle has to be unitask oriented so that when you contemplate, you don't get burned. Your only thought is towards Rama or joy. Last question. The final one that's shared will be answered tomorrow. Please copy that. From Portland. Can you imagine the people from Seattle and Portland and California are joining us? It's so early over there, and yet active enough to ask questions. That is inspiring. I will tell you more about this tomorrow. In terms of one with one, which is that personal time that I'm ready to offer at 6 a.m. Eastern time, half of those slots are filled in by seekers from Seattle and Portland, which means what time are they meeting me? 3 a.m. for them. Inspiring. Is observing breath and feelings, perception, or the higher stage of observe that you mentioned? Observing the body is the lowest. I called that perceive. Observing the breath is higher. But higher than that is observing the thoughts, higher than that, observing the decisions of the intellect. So the higher the equipment, the higher the observation. That's why pranayama should not be described as contemplation. It's so low in terms of our equipment. Finally, to observe the ego. This morning is morning 99 of 2022. Tomorrow morning will be our formal completion of Dhyana Yoga. What do you think makes meaningful mornings special in reference to other ways that you are learning? Learning how to be happy, learning about oneness. Please share in the chat. What is special about meaningful mornings? Nothing is also an answer. You don't write, I'm going to presume nothing. Regularity, the structure, it is daily. What's special is you. Good answer. At least you could have written me, but you wrote you. Grace, inclusivity, meaning, a reminder. It's personal. Yes, 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 yes. I was reflecting on this a lot, especially because I'm in a chaplaincy course right now. So I have endless hours of class, I have an assignment due today, etc. What's special about meaningful mornings is that you didn't have to register for anything. Agreed? There's no registration involved, especially for those who join through Facebook and Instagram. I'm not being paid for this. Agreed? If you're not agreeing, now you should agree, okay? When you give something, it goes to a charity. I am not a charity. I'm a charity case, but I am not a charity. There's no exchange between us. There is no secular exchange, no registration, no payment. And why that's special, then there's no expectation. Every experience of our life is filled with expectation, starting with our family, our professions, even our teachers in our courses. But I find meaningful mornings to be this safest space, as I mentioned. And so there should be a natural, for me at least, there is a natural nurturing of dakshina, dana, daya. A natural gratitude, a natural generosity, a natural grace. When there are no expectations, one should naturally feel more grateful. When there's no exchange, one should naturally feel more generous. When one is in the safest space, one should realize that that space is not outside, it is inside. And so you should live in that space outside of this space-time construct. That all in your life should become easier, more evolutionary. I'm sharing all of this because today is Earth Day. Today is the birthday, as if, of our foundation. I keep sharing with our children. No cooperation, no construction, which means I don't take them to a construction site. For us, no earth, no anything. That should be our slogan. Our community, and I checked right before I joined all of you, just over the past 25 days, has contributed towards planting 7,500 trees. I'm so happy that we are giving our mother this gift. A natural dakshina or gratitude I am offering to you for being you. Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. Oh. The most tactile, concrete, crystallized. You can use any word. Expression of grace is guidance. Think about being graced with plentiful resources. Think about being graced with good health. All of that will change. Resources, health, comes and goes. Guidance comes and stays, becomes more authentic, more deep, more real, more personal. How to treat a patient, how to invest in a portfolio, how to parent a child, etc. This is all instructional. In Sanskrit, adesha. Guidance. This is a guide from goodness to greatness. From good happiness to great happiness. To live a lifestyle of purification. To have a space and seat and senses and sentiments of preparation. This is called upadesha. And once you follow this guidance for even one step, one day, that taste, that experience is most moving, where you don't even want the purpose of your life to be greatness, but rather to be the greatest. To not need to compare yourself, to not need to validate yourself, to be independent. And so actually, factually, being able to nurture that independence in anyone and everyone. Be grateful, be generous in all of the grace in your life. Be grace-filled, be gracious, be grace. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.